The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. I'm your host, Don McIntosh. We're glad that you've joined us today. And today we're going to talk about research. Now, don't go to sleep. Research is exciting. It's important. It's something that helps us understand what we should and shouldn't do. And today, to talk with us about research is Dr. John Kelly. He's a medical doctor. He graduated just recently in the year 2000, and his focus is on research. He has an MPH in epidemiology, and he is involved in ongoing research even as we speak. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Kelly.
Glad to be here with you, Don.
Now, you have an interesting story, I guess, that you went into medical school a little bit older than most people.
That's true. I started medical school at Loma Linda when I was 48.
48.
I wouldn't recommend it, but it's been quite an interesting life.
And usually people that get involved in research start much younger, but somehow you were able to get right into research.
Yes, that's true. I have a background in information systems and computing, and that probably helped a lot. Plus, I'm one of the rare people that like mathematics and statistics and so forth.
Okay, good. We're glad that you're with us today. You're going to talk about the lifestyle research that's been done focusing on Adventists,
Yes.
and then how it relates to the overall vision of the Adventist Church.
Yes, yes. You know, in the National Geographic, the November 2005 National Geographic was on longevity. And, they looked at three different groups that have a large number of centenarians, people that are 100 years old or older. And they looked at folks from Sardinia in Italy, from Okinawa in Japan, and interestingly enough, a group right here in the United States, in Loma Linda, California, Seventh-day Adventists. And I think we have a graphic showing the
Cover.
this cover. You'll notice here I've asked, is there a connection between this feature on Seventh-day Adventists and longevity and the Adventist Health Study 2? And I want to just share why I think there's such a connection there.
So there is a definite connection between that. I mean, to show up on the front of a national magazine like National Geographic and to be viewed positively, the article was, I assume, positive.
Yes, actually, these three groups were all shared one thing in common, and that is they tended to live about 10 years longer than the average person, person in public.
Was there anything that set the Adventists apart from the other two groups?
Yes, actually, it's interesting that they tried to outline what each group's reason for why they had this extra longevity. And there were a number of similarities. For example, plant-based diet was common. But one thing that they mentioned about the Seventh-day Adventist group that they studied was that they were the one of the three that were not losing their advantage. They were not losing their advantage in living longer, healthier lives. The Sardinians, for example, they pointed out the youngsters today are adopting Western diet and lifestyle, and that group is losing some of the longevity they enjoy.
Now, was it because of the fact that we had done the Adventist Health Study, number one, that they could say that we weren't losing our edge? Was it how did they come up with it? Was it as a result of research?
Yes, well, the fact that Seventh-day Adventists are not losing is based on current measures and observation. I don't know that we can't say that Seventh-day Adventists aren't losing some but they're not losing like these other two groups, the Okinawa and Sardinians.
So the careful research done in the Adventist Health Study, talk to me a little bit about that, both number 1 and number 2.
Well, yes, actually, lifestyle research began about 40 years ago at Loma Linda University on Seventh-day Adventist. Dr. Phillips and Lemon were some of the early researchers, and now today, Dr. Fraser, Gary Fraser, is head of the Adventist Health Study too. Dr. Sabate does some of the nut studies. The thing that's important about this is that the early studies showed such significant difference between Seventh-day Adventists and other groups that the National Institutes of Health are funding the Adventist Health Study too at about $12 million of public money to do this. This will be the largest study of its type on a group of people whose diet is largely plant-based and have a number of health principles that they follow.
So they want to do this because, hey, the group that they're studying is living so much longer than others and has so many positive effects. They said, we want to put money to that and maybe learn something there that can help other Americans.
Absolutely. In fact, the Seventh-day Adventists have been called a national treasure by some of the researchers that are doing, looking at the relationship between lifestyle and disease.
Well, many times, you know, I grew up a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm a fourth-generation Seventh-day Adventist pastor. And in my family, there were two groups. There were those that listened. Before there was ever research, there was revelation, I guess you'd say. And then there were those that, you know, listened to that, and there were those that did not listen to that. And it's been interesting to see the diseases that have come up on the one side of the family that said, hey, we're not going to listen to that, versus the other. But now Adventists are kind of more energized again themselves, and the world seems to be more interested because of this research.
Yes, well, you know what's really interesting to me is that when we started this research 40 years ago, a plant-based or a vegetarian diet was actually considered deficient. Some of the early research was looking at showing that vegetarian diet was not deficient. Now we move to where we actually have found it's superior. We are now looking at the ways in which eating a plant-based diet is a superior practice. But when we started, this was far from the case. Did you know that a number of things have been actually first found in Seventh-day Adventists? For example, the beneficial effect of nuts was first found in the Adventist Health Study. It's been confirmed now in every major study that has looked at this, but it was first discovered in the Adventist Health Study.
You know, when I was working as a nurse, and I was, of course, an Adventist, and I, you know, practiced the vegetarian lifestyle, they'd always call me a nut. So now they have scientific research to back that up. Now, many times you know, people that talk about the information that the Adventist Church has been given that kind of led to these benefits, they talk about this as being the entering wedge. They talk about how because Adventists are healthy, that allows them to enter into other discussions of a more substantial nature, and I think you've noticed that as well.
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's referred to as the right arm of our evangelistic work. I've run into folk who say, well, why should we be doing research? Shouldn't we be spending this time and money? I mean, you're a physician. Why aren't you seeing patients? But do you know, it's some of our church leaders, like Mark Finley is one of our leaders in evangelism. They see the value of this kind of scientific support for the principles in the Bible. In fact, I have a quote here from Mark Finley, a letter that he wrote to me. It says, "It has been my joy for 35 years to publicly present the Adventist teaching on lifestyle in my evangelistic meeting to hundreds of thousands around the world. The work of Loma Linda University and the researchers participating in the Adventist health studies provide the scientific foundation for these scriptural presentations. I thank God for the scientists whose work confirms the ancient biblical health principles given by God through Moses." Mark Finley. And you know, I believe this, and I was so glad that he was willing to write a letter for me. I believe that this is part of strengthening that right arm, making it more capable of reaching further into society, into scientific circles in particular.
You know, I think it was Sir Isaac Newton who said, we think God's thoughts after him. And he noticed, I think the reason he went into scientific research, as I understand it, was because he wanted to understand the books of Daniel and Revelation. He was into math and science like you are. He did all kinds of research that not only benefited our world in science, but also now increases our faith in Revelation, in the Bible.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's clear now with articles like the National Geographic, it's clear that there are advantages to sharing our gospel with the world from the results of lifestyle research. Now, I want to mention, can I say one thing before? The Adventist Health Study 2, this is the second one, we have sent out information to about 135,000 or so folks to participate, but we're still not getting them all back. And we need another 30,000 folk to join us to make this a successful study. So I just want to put a plug. I'd like to encourage folk to help us.
And when this airs, there may have been more that responded or less, but whenever this airs, it'd be great to call. Where would they call? Call up Loma Linda University.
Call Loma Linda University.
And ask for the research department and say, hey, if there's any ongoing research, let me be a part of it.
Yes, they would know exactly what to do with the call.
And is this if they're having good health habits or bad health, whatever they're doing?
Exactly. We need everyone to participate. It's
so even if you're out there and you're not really doing what you should, you're going to be helpful because you're going to be able to prove certain points, those that do certain things versus those that don't, and that's very useful data, isn't it?
Sure. We don't know all the habits which will turn out to be something useful or something less useful. You know, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, have identified lifestyle factors as some of the leading cause of death. When we think of death, we generally think, well, a person dies of heart disease or dies of cancer, whatever. But those are what we call proximal causes. That's what actually killed you. Mm-hmm. But what is the ultimate cause? What is causing that heart disease? And we now know, and the CDC is recognized and published information showing us that the ultimate causes are first tobacco.
Tobacco.
This is a report I'm citing from the year of 2000. And the tobacco is the leading cause. Then inactivity and poor diet is second.
Okay.
So these are the two major life causes, ultimate cause of death.
Our lifestyle
choices.
They're just things that we choose.
That's correct. And we've even looked at the leading proximal cause is heart disease, and then the second is cancer. Well, both of those, it turns out, perhaps as much as 90%. The figures vary from 70 to 90-some% of heart disease and cancer is either preventable or reversible with lifestyle changes. And a lot of this information has come out of studies like the Adventist Health Study and other studies.
Well, this is fascinating stuff. We're talking with Dr. John Kelly. We're talking about the Adventist Health Study. We're talking about really the value of research and how it drives our confidence in what God's Word reveals. I mean, Genesis 1:29 clearly says fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables, and we're looking more closely at the science behind that. When we come back, we'll continue looking at this fascinating subject. We hope you join us.
Have you found yourself wishing that you could shed a few pounds? Have you been on a diet for most of your life, but not found anything that will really keep the weight off? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a solution for you that works. Dr. Hans Deal and Dr. Eileen Luddington have written a marvelous booklet called Reversing Obesity Naturally, and we'd like to send it to you free of charge. Here's a medically sound approach successfully used by thousands who were able to eat more and lose weight permanently without feeling guilty or hungry through lifestyle medicine. Dr. Deal and Dr. Luddington have been featured on 3ABM, and in this booklet, they present a sensible approach to eating, nutrition, and lifestyle changes that can help you prevent heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Call or write today for your free copy of Reversing Obesity Naturally, and you could be on your way to a healthier, happier you. It's absolutely free of charge. So call or write today.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. John Kelly. He's a medical doctor and a researcher from Loma Linda University, and he has a special interest in lifestyle research, looking at things we can do in the style of life that we lead to stop, reverse, and better yet, prevent the common killer diseases in Western nations and around the world. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Kelly.
I'm glad I can be with you.
You know, you were talking about how the Adventist lifestyle has been profiled on the front of National Geographic. You were talking about how research really laid the foundation for that article, the importance of research. You were encouraging the Adventists that are watching to say, hey, look, get involved. If there's ongoing research, call in, and call in today even if you're watching the program. And then you were talking about these proximal versus actual, I don't know if that's the right term, or ultimate causes of death and disease. And the top three I think you mentioned was tobacco, inactivity, and diet.
Yes, yes, this has definitely been published as in the scientific literature as the main ultimate causes, the primary ultimate cause of death. That means, for example, a person dies of heart disease because there was a blockage in the coronary artery where there was a buildup of plaque and it led to death of heart tissue. But what caused that buildup? What caused that blockage? That wasn't heart disease. That was hyperlipidemia. That was diet. That was poor diet, high cholesterol, lack of exercise.
It was like just a complete adding up of all the many choices that are made sometimes many more times a day in what we eat or don't eat.
Yes, yes.
Okay, you know, so the U.S. government's spending $12 million to study this, but you have another burden, and that burden has to do with already ongoing lifestyle initiatives. Tell us about that.
Yes, thank you. You know, the natural progression of research is first we do observational research. We observe what's going on. Then, from the conclusions or hypotheses from that, we do what we call intervention or experiments. We try to experiment to test our hypothesis, and that's really what my passion is we have studies that we're beginning where we're using not just observation, but intervention. There's a natural experiment that's been going on for some time because Adventist lifestyle centers have been operating since back in the 1870s. In fact, I think we have a little slide showing a list of some of these Adventist lifestyle centers. You know, the Western Health Reform Institute started back in the 1870s. That was with John Harvey Kellogg. The Whites were involved in that. Then
Kellogg's Corn Flakes, all that.
Yes, came out of that. Madison, around the turn of the century, 1900s, this was actually written up in Reader's Digest and was quite popular in the 30s and 40s, the work they were doing. Then Wildwood in Wildwood, Georgia in the 50s. And then we have another slide, more recent, Uchee Pines and Weimar Institute started in the 70s, both of them, the Lifestyle Center of America in the 90s, and Adventist Whole Health Network up in Pennsylvania in the 2000s. So here you see we have a rich history of centers using these principles to treat patients. But do you know that we've not done any rigorous research looking at the outcomes, and there's not been a multi-center study done previously. And so we established, that was my vision and dream, and so at the Loma Linda University School of Public Health, we've established the Lifestyle Research Initiative. This is, the goal is to study these intervention centers and to gain some external funding, just like we did with the Adventist Health Study.
Okay, so you want to look at these existing institutions. They've been sometimes there for many years, and they're helping all kinds of people, but you're hoping that with this research, you can document what you already know is true, and that is that their interventions are some of the best in the nation, some of the best in the world.
Yes, we believe, based on from case history and anecdotal stories over the more than a century, we believe that they can be effective. What we don't have is we don't have rigorous scientific studies that have been done on this. I wanted to mention that the Lifestyle Research Initiative was, some folks may have seen it, was in the Adventist Review in August of 2004. Here we have a slide showing the cover picture. This was a cutting-edge edition of the review, and then there was an article, page and a half.
Adventist Health Research takes a bold new step.
Yes, and there was Dr. Sabate and myself and some of our co-workers in some of the pictures. Yes, this is something we have a lot of church support for, the School of Public Health, and Mark Finley again in his letter. I believe we have a slide. He says, I heartily endorse these new studies on how lifestyle habits not only prevent disease but are viable, powerful methods in treating it. May the Lord continue to enable His people to clearly demonstrate the veracity of His principles through lifestyle medicine. Mark
Right,
Finley.
so not just documenting what's in the past, but treating it, and you want to document that.
That is correct. And I consider it a calling, an honor, and a privilege to be working in this area. As I say, the principles have been used for over a century, but we haven't actually done the study, the rigorous kind of research that we're doing now.
So you're actually, you know, it's not going to be a surprise. You know how the research is going to turn out because you know, early Adventists were led not by science, but by revelation.
Yes, this is going to be very, very interesting. You know, one of the things that was a challenge for the church leadership when I studied into this back when we first started doing lifestyle research at Loma Linda, was there was some concern about whether this was going to be a good thing to do or not, because our health message was based on revelation much more so than science. Well, now time has shown that in fact the science is there just as solid as the revelation. And so here again, this time we're not nearly so concerned. Right, we know what we're going to find. But anytime as a scientist, anytime we say we know what we're going to find, you're heading for trouble. You have to be objective and look for what is actually happening, not only what you hope is happening.
Right, and has there ever been a surprise when people have done that?
Oh, sure, that has been. In fact, one of the ones that comes to my mind is we were both recently at a meeting where a world-class scientist was telling how he started off to do research on the benefits of protein to increase the world's food supply, only to find out that, for goodness sake, plant protein is superior to the animal protein that he was promoting or studying initially. He found some very different conclusions. We're talking about Dr. Colin Campbell. But even in our own work, for example, we now know that there are Seventh-day Adventists have a higher incidence of prostate cancer than some other groups.
Because?
Well, that is yet to be uncontroversially determined and settled, but is a good hypothesis is because, you know, Seventh-day Adventists tend to be lacto-ovo-vegetarian. They tend to eat a lot of dairy products, and dairy is clearly associated with prostate cancer. At least I believe it's beyond a shadow of a doubt. There's still some controversy, but it's becoming clear that that's a factor.
So with this Adventist observational research, you actually have some kind of grant where you're able to look at these lifestyle centers like Uchee Pines, Weimar, all these different ones you mentioned that are in existence?
Well, actually, we don't have a grant yet for the multi-center study we would like to do. What we do have is, well, let me just, I think I have a list here showing the studies that we have underway. For example, we have a randomized intervention trials planned for Wildwood Lifestyle Center in Georgia, for Black Hills Health and Education Center up near Rapid City, and we have an Adventist multi-center CHIP study where we're going to be looking at the outcomes of coronary health improvement programs conducted by volunteers in the Adventist churches. Then we also have here, the Lifestyle Center of America, we have a randomized trial ready to begin, and their board has actually approved matching funds. So for every dollar we raise, they will put in $1 or $2. And then we have, I'm working on a study with Canvasback Missions in the Marshall Islands using lifestyle to treat diabetes and with the Spences. And we have year one has been funded by Congress. This is a 3 to 5 year project there in the Marshall Islands. So this shows that, I mean, here's 6 studies that we have in some point of progress. But we have the $12 million going for Adventist Health Study 2, I mentioned, and we're very happy for that. But
Right.
do you know, in the beginning, the National Institutes of Health did not say, hey, we have $12 million, would you like it? We had to do a lot of preliminary work funded by private funds to show that, hey, there's something here worth studying. Well, we're at that same process now. We've got to do these preliminary studies on our own with private funding, show the value, and then I believe we'll be able to get some external funds.
So when people are out there and they're watching and they say, hey, man, I would really like to see that go forward, you would certainly welcome a phone call from them saying, I'd like to be involved in helping fund that.
Oh, absolutely. And there are people, we know there are people who've told me, I would like to help fund a study at such and such center or of a certain disease. And so, you know, we are wanting to help move forward this rigorous study of using Adventist lifestyle principles to treat disease at these lifestyle centers.
Well, I can definitely see how that's going to strengthen the hand of area churches as they help people with their physical needs. And then as people are helped physically, you know, they look for two things, scientific excellence and a sacrificial spirit. And if that comes across, certainly then this is a part of the entering wedge. This is a part of helping people not just have life, but eternal life.
Yes, and you know, we have a responsibility, I believe, as Christian physicians and health professionals to help improve and reform the practice of medicine and of health, public health in the world. And so this research very definitely ties together the insights that we have been, I know for myself, for example, I became a vegetarian not from science, but from becoming a Christian and reading Genesis 1:29. I said, well, I want to follow the design. I want to follow the plan. We can now, using science, show the superiority of this inspired counsel.
Are they looking at diabetes in the Marshall Islands?
Yes, diabetes is actually 2 to 3 times more of a prevalent in the Marshall Islands than it is even in the United States. And so it's a very serious problem there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly, for joining us from your busy research schedule and you know, spending time with us and making a larger group of people know about what's happening.
Thank you. It's really a privilege to be with you, Don, and talk about this topic.
And thank you for joining us today. You've heard the good news that really God's plan has been scientifically documented. It maybe comes as no surprise. But you've also heard how you can help. If you want to be involved in the research, call Melinda. Say, what's going on? Can I be involved? And we hope that you and those you influence will have health for a lifetime.